Hey everybody, CT Hippo here. So, the resin having finally gone off, I kind of made a mistake there. I didn't realize that what I had was slow hardener. As I've mentioned before, it's 2-part epoxy with a resin and a hardener. And the hardener comes in different flavors. It comes in regular, fast, and slow. You use the fast for cold environments or things where you don't have good clamping and it needs to set up in a hurry. Use the slow for really hot environments. This being a chemical reaction, it is very heat driven. Apparently, the last time I was doing this, it was hotter than hell in the shop because I used the slow hardener and it took like 4 hours to set up, which is, not what I'm used to. So, this took a little longer to get to the next stage. But here we are at the next stage. We're going to go ahead and put the mat in and find a place to put this. How do I want to do this? Yeah, we'll do something like that. So, I've got my package of fiberglass mat here. I've got some scissors. What I'm going to do, this is actually glass stretched out into fibers and then woven together. So what I'm going to do is cut out a piece of this stuff that approximately matches the wooden area, which is a little hard to see now. I'm using trauma shears because we have trauma shears in the shop because both Scott and I are firefighter EMTs. Any kind of regular scissors will work. Stuff isn't particularly hard to cut despite being glass. And I'm going to try to get the little filaments out, little fuzzies that fall off here. Gives me a piece like that. Okay, so one there, and a couple little small ones. If I don't get absolutely every inch of this, it's okay. The fiberglass really adds strength. And if you've just got a little hole that you drowned because something was bad, not having fiberglass in that little spot will not kill it. And it's sometimes really tricky to figure out where I ground out. Alright. I think that covers the big spots. Now, I'm going to go ahead and mix up another 3 ounces of resin. Hopefully whatever I have left over will cover the rest of the cockpit ring. So again with the resin, 2 parts A, just a little, 2 parts A to 1 part B, gives us epoxy that will go off eventually. The purists will tell you that you should measure from the bottom of the meniscus. The vapor pressure will cause it to bowl up around the edges of the container, blah, blah, blah. You know, I've never had... Oh, we're a little over there. Okay. I've never had this stuff fail to go off. So, it's a little more tolerant of bad measurement than they might lead you to believe. Still, obviously, it's best to get it right. Would help if I was left-handed. Just making sure I scrape the walls of the mixing vessel, get all that stuff that might be sticking to them off. Get any adhered crud off of my stir stick here. Okay, set that aside. Then I'm just going to pour some resin onto the cloth. Use my spreader here. Drop in the resin because, you know, that's what I do. And as the cloth soaks up the resin, I hope you can see this on the film. As the cloth soaks up the resin, it becomes transparent and will actually just about disappear. So I'm just working it back and forth into the cloth. One thing I should have mentioned yesterday and completely forgot, or at least in the last video from your standpoint, is when you're applying new resin to old resin, if the old resin was poured in the last couple days, it will stick. Otherwise, you need to sand the old stuff before you apply the new stuff, because the old stuff, if it's done right, will be so slick that once it's fully gone off, the new stuff won't stick to it. So you have to rough the surface up some. Obviously, I sanded the shit out of this stuff before I started this, so that's not much of a concern. But if you're going over stuff that's smooth, you do need to sand it and rough it up some beforehand. It's also good to get all the loose fuzzies like this out, because those will have to probably be ground out after the fact if I'm not careful, or since this is the back of the cockpit, and yeah, see, there's another one. Since this is the back of the cockpit and it's going to mostly be under a bulkhead, I may just not worry about it, but to do it right, you should get that out of there. This isn't soaking in quite the way I had hoped. So now I'm going to scoop up the excess of this and start working it into this one. just a little more there. Move it around to wet it out. There, it's starting to go. Let's see if I can grab some excess off of this one, because I got this pretty heavy. Yep. Let's see what I pulled off there, and apply it to this still kind of white spot here. Get the fuzzies out. I have to say it's really tricky to try to hold the camera in one hand and work with the other and pay attention to both of them. Use just a little more resin. Now something that I'd kind of forgotten, but you'll figure out on this is that just doing your initial skim coat, where you just, coat the wood and let it absorb in. Yeah. What I did last time, where I just sort of painted it on, takes a lot less resin than what I'm doing now, because you actually have to get this stuff absorbed into the mat. Okay, you can see drips forming there. That's not what I want to have happen, so I'm going to go ahead and just spread that back out some. Anyway, yes. So, the 3 ounces that I mixed up yesterday, I used it all, obviously, but I had a significant amount left over that went on to other things. Out of the 3 ounces I had today, mixed up today, you can see here, we've got something less than an ounce left. So the mat absorbs a lot of it. There's the cockpit ring, so the outside of that's largely done. I think I'll work on the top of it today. The downside to these cheap brushes is they have a tendency to shed bristles, and they'll leave those bristles in your work. The flip side to that is there's no way I'm spending $15 or $20 on a high quality brush that absolutely will not shed bristles that I get to use once and then it gets thrown away because there's really nothing that will dissolve. Well, I don't want to say there's nothing, there probably are things, but there's nothing that I've got around that will dissolve resin. Once this stuff goes off, it's gone off, and that's pretty much the end of the whatever it was on, including things like paintbrushes. So it's a trade-off. You use cheap brushes, they shed bristles, you try to pick them out of your work, you miss them, there's some left over, but just kind of the way it is. This is dripping, which I don't want, because as I've mentioned before, it sticks to everything, and once it's there pretty much forever. And besides that, resin's bloody expensive, and so I hate to waste it. And on that note, I'm trying to get the absolute last little bit out of the cup here, because I mentioned resin's bloody expensive and I hate to waste it. Alright, well, that uses up pretty much all of my resin. Well, my ever-helpful camera battery decided that would be the perfect moment to die, but all you missed was me scrambling around trying to find a place to hang up a resin-coated cockpit ring. And there it be. That's going to take like 4 or 5 hours to go off, because I used the slow hardener. If I'd used regular hardener, which I don't have any of, it would have been like, oh, I don't know, less than an hour to be fully cured. So, oh well. You can see the patches I put in there. Those will almost totally disappear as the resin dries. The white that you're seeing that's sticking out is actually the resin, not the cloth. So, with that all more or less finished, it's time to go do something productive for the rest of my day. Until next time, we'll see you later.